In recent months, we've witnessed a wave of shootings at our nation's high schools, and each new eruption of violence brings comparisons to another murderous rampage at Columbine High School in Jefferson County, Colorado. It's been 2 years since Columbine, and today, many people, especially some parents of the murdered children, still believe the worst school massacre in American history might have been avoided if the sheriff's department and the school authorities had done their jobs. We've been investigating the shootings at Columbine for the past 6 months, and tonight you'll hear new and surprising information about what happened there. Some of that information was in the sheriff's files, undisclosed, until we went to court to have it released. And some of it comes from 2 former security officials at the school district who say that 8 months before the shootings, they gave Columbine a plan which they say might have prevented the killings, a plan they say the school all but ignored. You'll also hear from key figures who haven't felt comfortable speaking until now about what happened on that terrible day. On the morning of April 20th, 1999, 18-year-old Eric Harris was in the garage of his home filling duffel bags with bombs and rigging weapons in his trench coat. A few miles away, 17-year-old Dylan Klebold was preparing his own weapons. He wrote out his schedule for the day. Park cars, set car bombs for 11:18. When first bombs go off, attack. Have fun. It was a warm spring day and a lot of students were eating lunch outside. Danny Rohrbaugh, a freshman, was outside with some friends. It was 11:19. For the next few minutes, the students in the cafeteria heard gunfire. As a school security camera recorded them, some of those students looked out to see Danny lying dead on the sidewalk. He'd been shot 3 times. The attack on Columbine had begun. When the shooting started, teacher Rich Long was working in the library.
The assistant librarian tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "You know, Rich, I would like you to come and look at this because I don't know if it's real." We went to the window. I saw Dylan with a gun in his hand and it was smoking, and I could see Eric firing some shots, and I turned to her and I said, "This is very real."
At 11:22, as students hid under tables, a cafeteria worker was already on the phone with a 911 operator.
So far they're outside. I know there's one kid that's been shot, and there's still shots going on. Shots fired, 1 down.
I said, "We've got to get up and get out of here." Maybe 5, 10 kids followed me out that front door down to the first landing of the cafeteria area. That's when the kids that were hiding under the tables started streaming towards me, 300 to 400 kids.
Just outside the cafeteria, Harris and Klebold had killed 2 students and wounded 6 more. Then they turned away from their victims and headed for the school's west entrance. An art teacher, Patty Nielsen, was on hall duty just inside the west doors when she saw Eric Harris.
He looked at us, smiled, and shot. I was grazed by a bullet in my shoulder.
But he looked right at you and smiled.
Yeah.
And shot.
Yeah.
As the gunman headed into the school, business teacher and coach Dave Sanders rushed through the cafeteria, telling the remaining students to stay down. Then he headed upstairs to warn others.
And just as Dave turned that corner, that's where Dave was shot.
He was your good friend?
He was. We coached together for probably 7 years. He was in my wedding. He was one of my groomsmen, and, you know, just had a great heart for kids.
Did he go down when he was shot?
He went down. And at that point, I was on my hands and knees, and I yelled to Dave. I said, "Dave, you've got to get up."
Mike Rotola was taking a test in Science Room 3 when Dave Sanders came in.
He took 2 steps and he fell flat on his face. And there was blood coming out of the front of his mouth and also out of his back and his neck.
What did you guys do?
A lot of people started crying, and all we could really do was give them our shirts so they could try and stop the bleeding.
He looked up at me and he said, "You know, I think they shot me in the mouth." And I said, "You're going to be okay." And he goes, "I don't think so. I'm not doing so well." And I said, "You know, we need to get you some help."
My thought was just to warn kids. I remember running into the library and immediately being hit by the fact that the library was full of children.
And then you called 911?
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson County 911.
Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun. He has shot out a window.
Okay, has anybody been injured, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the school is in a panic, and I'm in the library. I've got students down under the table, kids. Heads under the table. Kids are screaming. We need police here.
Okay, we're getting them there.
He turned the gun straight at us and shot. And my God, the window went out. And the kid standing there with me, I think he got hit.
Okay, we've got help on the way, ma'am.
Did you think help was on the way?
Oh, yeah, because I was on the phone to the operator. So she says, help is on the way. And, yeah, I thought, you know, they were going to be there right away.
Police were at the school right away. Within 5 minutes of the first shots fired, the sheriff's deputy assigned to work at the school was in the west parking lot. He exchanged gunfire with Harris, who retreated into the school.
Got a couple shots off of the shooter on the southeast end. It's a big gun.
Southwest side with a large weapon. Potential unit 71 is under fire. He advised the suspect just ran into the building.
That deputy was soon joined by 6 other policemen who took positions around the building. None of them entered the school, where Harris and Klebold were heading toward the library, shooting in the halls and throwing bombs into the cafeteria below.
As this is happening, we're hearing more shots, we're hearing screaming, we're hearing kids running in the halls, the shooters yelling. The library is where they came next. I ducked down under the counter. I could hear them walking past because everyone else in the library was absolutely silent.
Evan Todd was the first student shot in the library.
Eric Harris was standing in the hallway, and he cocked a shotgun and shot at me, hit my back, my neck, my face.
And what happened then?
They shot again. I felt it through the desk again. They were throwing out questions like, you know, are you a jock? Do you believe in God? And every time I heard a question, I heard a gunshot. So I pulled my knees up to my chest, and I was just bracing myself for another shot. And Dylan said to Eric, I'm not going to take him. If you want him, you can have him.
They were angry, and they thought they were funny. They would laugh and hoot, and they would say cruel things to students, and they were trying to humiliate them. And then you'd hear them ching-ching the guns, and you'd hear one yell at a student, and then you'd hear another, then you'd hear gunshots, and you figure that they just shot that kid.
Sophomore Kelly Fleming usually spent her free time in the library. 5 months after the shootings, her parents, Don and Dee Dee, heard tapes of Patty Nielsen's 911 call.
They were very difficult to listen to.
And what did you hear on those tapes?
Terror, complete horror.
Okay. Oh, God. Stay on the line with me.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I listen to those. I think from the beginning, she's alive, Kelly's alive, she's all right, she's waiting for someone's going to come. She thinks to get her, to help her, to save her. And I keep thinking from minute to minute, she's still alive, and then it hits a point in the tape where she's dead.
You've said that when you heard those tapes, you began to doubt that the sheriff's department had done everything it could to save those children. What made you think that?
There was no one in that school that had a gun other than the 2 killers, and no one pursued them. No one tried to engage them.
And in essence, they chased them into the school and then let them just kill at will, knowing that they were killing.
For almost 20 minutes, she waited. 20 minutes, that's a long time for someone to have the opportunity to come in and make a difference.
I've set my timer and sat in my kitchen, ticking off how long that is. It's an incredibly long time. I'm yet to be convinced that something could not have been done in that length of time.
Lauren Townsend, the class valedictorian, was also studying in the library that day. She played on the volleyball team coached by her mother, Dawn Anna.
Lauren respected authority. I'm positive Lauren never doubted that when an adult told her help was on the way, help was coming.
The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office declined to speak with us, but in a letter, Sheriff John Stone described the Columbine attack as a unique set of circumstances, the magnitude of which no one had dealt with before. He also cited some of the obstacles that kept his men from entering the building right away, including bombs, booby traps, and a lack of information about how many gunmen were in the school.
They say that they had to have a safe route in there to get to them, and they weren't sure of what they had.
Lauren's stepfather, Bruce Beck.
But at the same time, they're listening to kids being shot and murdered inside that library over a 911 call, and their job is to protect people.
And if you're going to tell my child to stay put, you're coming to get her, then either go in there and do something or take off the uniform and find another job. But that day you were a cop. And that day you chose to stand by and listen to homicide.
Ed, I don't know if you have children or not, but if you were there and your child was in that school, whether you had a gun or not, you'd have gone in after them.
But if they had gone in after Harris and Klebold,
I think it would have been totally different. Harris and Klebold would have had different targets to shoot at.
they would have been shooting at the cops instead of the kids.
Instead, they went into the library and took their time. Let's stop and reload. Let's tell a few jokes while we're reloading. They had no fear at that point that there was anybody that was going to engage them.